Shudder. Sunday is episode 28, Bloody Axe Wound. We're kind of dipping into some newer releases of April. We figured it's been a little bit of time since we checked out what was the, quote-unquote new offerings of Shudder. And this is the one we are going to start this month off with. So that is Bloody Axe Wound.
In my town of Clover Falls, real-life massacres have been put on tape and packaged for decades. And while some dads fix toilets, my dad terminates teens.
Why not me?
Because you're a girl.
What?
Sorry, woman. Ma, I mean no disrespect, but she's got to hear this.
This was released December 27th, 2024, but very limited. It did just pop onto streaming March 21st of this year. This was directed by Matthew John Lawrence. This was sort of one of, not his first, but it's in the early parts of his directorial career. This is starring Sari Arambulo as Abbie Bladecut. She was on, and I haven't seen this show, I've heard good things, but AP Bio. This is a pretty popular show.
I thought she looked kind of familiar.
Yep. Stars Billy Burke as Roger Bladecut, even though you probably couldn't recognize him at all under all that makeup. Again, another movie/franchise I had not seen. He is from Twilight.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Twilight fan myself.
No, never got into those.
So I wouldn't have known that.
Starring alongside them was Molly Brown as Sam Crane, who was in the series Dexter Original Sin, and Eddie Levy, who I think stole the show.
Oh, he is so pissed.
As Glenn, who is also an AP Bio actor as well. So there's also an appearance from Jeffrey Dean Morgan, plays Butch Slater. Pretty small role. I kind of, when I saw the cast, I thought that he would have a bigger role in this.
I did too.
But I guess it was more or less just a big name to kind of grab audience's attention. But obviously from Watchmen, Walking Dead, The Boys. But that's the cast and crew. So why don't you give a quick little short synopsis of what Bloody Axe Wound is about?
Okay. The infamous serial killer in the small town of Clover Falls, Roger Bladecut, has become known for his recordings of real-life murders that he's since turned into a film franchise, typically targeting high schoolers. His daughter Abbie believes she is ready to follow in his footsteps and take over the family slasher business. As Bladecut is starting to become weaker with his age, he gives Abbie a chance, and she quickly realizes that she might not be cut out for the job.
Cut out. I see what you did there. Shudder Skull rating. Do you remember what the Shudder Skull rating? What do you think we got for this one?
I don't remember. Was it a 4?
This was not a 4.
A 3?
This is a 3 out of 5 on the Shudder Skull rating. And the Rotten Tomatoes. This is
this disappointed me. I did see the Rotten Tomatoes.
So then the critics, what did the critics have for this one?
The one I saw online was a 27%.
Okay, so when I saw it did go up a little bit, 29%. So, with it being still a newer-ish movie, I'm sure it's fluctuating a little bit. But the audience score, that's the one that surprised me a little bit. Do you remember what the audience score was at the time?
I didn't look at the audience score. I looked at the critic score.
So what do you think the audience score for this is going to be?
I would say maybe a 76.
62.
62?
A little bit lower, but still fairly respectable.
I'm surprised this was lower than I thought it would be.
This is a interesting movie that we'll get into. And a couple notes that I had. The intro of this didn't really skip a beat. It came out right, like, hot and heavy. Had rock, just like blasting, body horror. Good soundtrack all around, I'd say. It was kind of... I feel like the soundtrack was a little all over the place with, like, rock and synthy and,
I had that written
stuff
down
like that.
too.
But it was overall, I did enjoy it. The voiceover intro, and this was, I really didn't know what I was getting into when I popped this on. I just thought it was a slasher, like straight up, that was it. And there's obviously it's a different style of slasher. And my notes, I wasn't sure what was happening yet, but I heard the voiceover of the intro, and it really gave me the teen coming of age story vibes, and I loved it.
For sure.
I didn't know that this really was a more satirical slasher mixed with coming of age kind of undertones. So I was kind of dead on with that one. But the second scene, when I first saw Roger Bladecut, like when he was in the back of the movie rental store, I thought he was just wearing a mask. I thought it was like he was just this horror fanatic.
Did you?
Yeah. I didn't know that this was like the direction of the movie that we were going. I tried to kind of go in pretty open with these movies. I don't even watch the trailers half the time. I just kind of jump right in. So there was a a learning curve, I'd say, when watching this movie for me, because and then we saw like grandma at the dinner table, and I was like, is this fake? Like I was confused to start.
It was
because
a little
I didn't know
confusing.
where it was going.
Yes.
I expected a more. I didn't know what
It
to
was sort of
expect.
like meta, kind of.
Yeah,
I feel like,
it
in
had a
sense.
lot of that, and I didn't. That's not what I was expecting. So the whole time I was questioning, I was like, "Is this?" And then as it went on, I kind of figured out that no, this is just what Roger Bladecut looks like. That's him. It's pretty much a Jason Voorhees character that's living in normal life, I guess. But I saw that if the store was like so close to closing, why didn't he try going to Manhattan to kill people or space?
No.
Like Jason.
That's a good point. I really like the store name too. Real to Real.
Real to Real. I did notice that one. That was a pretty good one. I do forget the character's name that was like the supposedly the son.
There was a lot of characters in this.
There was, and it was a good little ensemble cast with like Abbie's little friend group. But the one character that played
Mackenzie?
the son, it was kind of like son of Jason, but it was like the son of
Oh, when
Bladecut. When he went on to go do his first kill, Abbie kind of got overlooked to, take over Roger's next
Family legacy.
Yeah,
business
there was
kind of.
another character. There was a male character that kind of went and tried to take over the Bladecut name, I guess. And he was trying to get his first kill, and he's like, "Oh man, she's already out of the shower. Like, is there any way to get her dirty again? I'm like, I really want my first kill to be in the shower." And I was like, "Okay, that's just a fun like meta commentary on most of them being attacked in the shower." But
I'm pretty sure that was Mackenzie because it's the same guy who works in the video store.
Yeah, okay, so then Mackenzie, so that's who it was. But then, obviously, the first kill didn't go well. He definitely dropped the ball there. He fell face first onto a trophy, and
That was a really cool scene.
didn't really make it past that point. I thought that was a really, really funny. The kill her fast montage in the diner was pretty cool.
Kill her.
It was when Abbie was really, truly conflicted of, she's starting to learn about Sam, but then it's just like, kill her. And then I thought it was pretty well done. I was confused about the whole her going to school aspect.
So I was under the impression that since she wanted to like take over her father's real life slasher business or whatever, and he normally targeted high schoolers, I think they wanted to put her in school so she could like get to meet these people or like have a better sense of like who they are to kill them. I don't know.
I guess, but she ends up going to school, and she's not new to town, but she's new to school. There was a line that she was like homeschooled, but she had been working at the store, and she's been around town. It's not like they're in the outskirts, like hiding in the woods.
Right.
So I was surprised that nobody had ever seen her before.
Yeah.
And there was no like, oh yeah, you're the girl that works down at the Reel to Reel or whatever. Because it does seem that people kind of go in and go out of there. I was a little... I don't know if they ever specified what year this took place.
I think it was supposed to be in the 90s.
Because that's like... It gave me different vibes. Like, it gave me, like, 80s style characters. But then it had sort of, like, 90s clothing. Movie rental stores are obviously very 90s. And if you're doing the closing of it, maybe towards the end of the 90s. But I don't think it really ever specified. But I would like to go back to see if there was other... telling items in there. Like, I don't remember if there was like people on smartphones or...
She did give her a cassette tape.
Okay, so maybe it is more 90s.
Sam was like, I made you a tape, and they were like, oh, let's play it right now, and they...
Okay, so they didn't really overly specify, but we can assume, I guess. The... outside of the murder of one of the characters when they were outside the house and the police tape was up.
Yes.
And that was really when Eddie Levy came out like swinging with his great comedy. This character would just kind of show up. He was seemingly in on the fact that they do murders and film it or
That's
whatever.
what I was confused about. I was like, so he's got to know.
Yeah, because he always wants to be in the movie. So every time he shows up, he's in like a different like character outfit,
like disguise
and just like doing very bad but funny acting. He was outside the murder thing, just what is happening to our town, and just over the top, and then just
killing our children.
It was just ridiculous.
He's really funny.
Towards the end, we get into a more campground like aesthetic. And the other character, anybody want to toast some wieners? They're at the fire pit, and I thought that was a funny little callback because lo and behold, that character during the madness of the ending gets killed, and you see a charred dick on like a roasting stick
Dick
outside
on a
of
stick.
a fire pit.
I had
Dick
that in
on a
there.
stick.
Poor Billy.
Yeah, Billy's charred dick. The fireside, like, camp origin story, I felt that should have been up front.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, because it did feel out of place when we got it towards the end. At the time that we got this, like, overlay story, I had sort of pieced already together what was going on with the character. I didn't need Bladecut's, like, origin story anymore.
Yeah.
It would have been nice up front because that would have cut my confusion down of, like, is this a mask? Is he just a Halloween freak? I don't know.
Right.
So I that was a little out of the ordinary for me. And Patty, the nerd, when she got killed, there was just so much blood. So
like
much blood.
a ridiculous amount of blood.
Which you could tell.
Overdid it a little bit.
Yeah, but they overdid it to the point where I knew it was a gag.
I think it was supposed to, yeah.
Versus them, like, taking it serious. So that's really the notes that I had going throughout this. Did you have any other notes before we get into our categories?
Yeah, so I know you kind of mentioned Friday the 13th and, like, Jason kind of campy style and stuff like that. This had a lot of similarities to some other horror movies and different movies. The grandma, or, like, Roger's wife, or I guess it was grandma.
It was his mother, yeah.
It was his mother, okay. Looked just like the mom in Psycho.
Yep.
Her like, corpse.
Yep.
The wolf mask was just, like, Creep.
Okay,
like the peach fuzz mask, and then he also has an axe in that. When Roger Bladecut comes through, when they're, like, I forgot where they're at, but towards the end of the movie, when he, like, crashes through the window, and then he has the actual mask on, and it's kind of like the baghead mask. It reminded me of Jason a little bit, Friday the 13th. Yeah, there was a lot of kind of similarities to horror movies, but I like little Easter eggs like that. I don't know if it was supposed to be intentional, but it kind of seemed like it.
Yeah, I would assume so.
At the end, when they're all at the cabin, and then Patty peels open the pill bottle that they all give them when they're tripping, and it says, honk shoe.
Yeah.
And because she was like, these aren't sleeping pills, are they? And she was like, no. And she, like, looks at the label and opens it up. I thought that was kind of funny. I really liked the video store aspect. The only thing that kind of confused me, I guess, was, did the town know Roger Bladecut was a real guy and knew these were real murders, and just everyone just let it happen? Or it's like it became such, like, a thing in the town that maybe they thought it wasn't real, or...
The ideas in this movie are fun, but I don't think storyline-wise they nailed it, because there's a lot of questions to be asked. Yes. You sort of have to just... It got to the point where I was about halfway through, and I was like, all right, I just have to suspend all my disbelief, because this is just... If you look too deep, it won't make sense.
It reminded me of Fear Street a little bit. I feel like this could be made into, like, a short series.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Excuse me, kind of how they did it.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about that once I get into some of the other little categories. So let's jump into those. So the good. What did you have the good for Bloody Axe Wound?
I know you'd mentioned it before, but I really, really liked the soundtrack for this. Like you were saying, it was a lot of, like, heavy rock at the beginning, and there was some, like, grunge, and then, like, experimental and kind of softer indie. Thought it was a really cool mesh of it, and it kind of gave a little bit more of that 90s vibe, I guess, too. I liked it at the end when Sam, I guess, kind of realized what was going on with Abbie and, like, her father's business, and then she ends up shooting Patty with, like, the harpoon or the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Instead, because she was about to, like, Patty was about to kill Abbie towards the end when they're in the cabin or wherever they're at.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would Sam kill Patty? Because she was trying to kill Abbie, and she just liked her and didn't want her to die, and she kind of accepted what was going on.
I remember her getting killed, but I couldn't remember if, like, Bladecut shot her through something, like through the window or something. It didn't really...
They thought it was, but then she, like, moved over, and Sam had, like, the harpoon or, like, bow and arrow thing.
Okay. Oh, because they thought... Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So they thought Patty was killing all their friends.
Yeah.
She was, like, kind of...
So I was like, that was kind of a plot twist. I kind of like that. What else did I have it on here? I really liked the acting. I thought the acting in this was pretty good. It wasn't bad. Like you were mentioning, there was some more notable characters than others, but for what it was, I feel like it did exemplify that kind of, like, campy horror slasher coming of age, as you said. I feel like it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, what did you have for some of the good on here?
For the good, this is the first time I've ever seen a true, like, coming of age slasher hybrid, and I love those coming of age style movies, especially the ones from the 80s, and just it was a really fun, interesting concept. I don't think they nailed it 100%, but and I'll kind of talk about that later once we get into the bad and what would you change, but that attempt of like mixing those two genres was something I hadn't really seen of or heard of before, so that was really cool. The soundtrack was really, really good. You already talked about that, so I don't need to harp on it too much. I thought all the kills were really fun.
Yeah.
They were all very different. It never got repetitive or, just hack and slash. There was a lot of different little moments where, insides were just exploding out, and there was just fun little things about it. The gore and excessive blood, it was fun because it was done in that sort of tongue-in-cheek style way. It wasn't just... you could tell the moments, like I mentioned, the one with Patty, it was so overkill that you knew it was...
meant to be.
Correct. Yeah, it was just for fun, essentially. Yeah. And Eddie Levy's character was the absolute MVP of this movie.
Really funny.
He didn't carry it because he wasn't truly a main character, but every moment that he was on screen was an absolute joy. His delivery was just so funny. If you just take the character at face value, it's very funny. If you start to look deeper into it, it's like, wait, does he know? Why does he know? It gets a little weird there, so don't try to think too much on that. But just his line delivery alone was phenomenal.
And he's got to be involved in it somehow, too, because he owns the laundromat next to the video shop and cleans all the bloody clothes from the murders and stuff like that, because Abbie brought some clothes in. He was like, no, I can't keep doing this. Like, this is gross. Like,
I found a thumb in the jacket last time. Yeah. And even at that point, when he said that, I was still sort of under the assumption, I was like, oh, it's just fake movies that they're making.
Right.
Like, so it was like a little prop thumb. Now going back to it, I'm like, oh no, it was like a real thumb. But so the bad, let's get into the bad for Bloody Axe Wound. What did you have for that?
I wouldn't necessarily say this is bad because I'm the #1 fan of movies being pretty short, but this was a short, quick watch too, and I feel like it had enough substance to it, but I feel like it would have benefited from a little bit more maybe, and if it was a little more concise in the storytelling, in the sense, I know you kind of brought it up earlier as well, so I won't go over it too much, but how you were saying that kind of campfire story when they kind of reveal his like character arc and whatever, stuff like that, I kind of wish they added that in the beginning. And I kind of wish it was a little more, I don't know, I wish it was explained a little bit better with the whole Bladecut making these movies and then selling them in the video store and them being such a hot commodity and having all these sequels and stuff like that. And I really like that aspect, but it just got confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk more on that too now, because the story for me there was just so many aspects of it that... Like
There's too many characters. Sorry to cut you off. There's a lot of characters.
Yes. Characters for me are fine. But the story as a whole, you mentioned some of it, but so like, who's filming these movies? Nobody. They just kind of like get made, and then there's like a mystery delivery of all the tapes with the cover art at the store, and they sell them. So that's like a really weird mystery aspect to it. The whole, like, I just don't get how people in the town don't know him. He owns the store, he runs the store, he lives in a house in the town. Like, this is a guy you would see around town. So how do you not know this guy is, like, killing and selling the kills, especially in the movies when you're like, oh, that's John getting murdered.
That's pretty crazy.
Like, so that whole aspect of it was a little bit jarring that I kind of had to get out of. The whole list of who to kill just kind of also mysteriously shows up, and you just have to kill who's circled, and then that's that. Yeah,
and he didn't really specify it either. He was like, you just kill who's circled, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, speaking on that, actually, one more thing that I had in the good that was funny. It takes the tropes of, like, slashers, and they really frame Bladecut as, like, this more crotchety, older guy. And they're like, oh, he's smoking weed. Oh, he's smoking dope. And, like, you gotta kill him. Like, he gives you all the terms of, like, oh, they're promiscuous. You have to kill him.
She's crass, a drug addict.
Yeah, he doesn't like swearing. So it frames the slasher as, like, this goody two-shoes, like, Ned Flanders character that...
As if he's doing some good.
Correct. So it's that was a funny... explanation as to why he's killing these people, so that was fun. But back to the bad, it was mostly for me that aspect of the movie storyline wise where it left a lot of question marks, and I guess you just gotta kind of go with it. Any other bad before we move on?
Not that I could think of. No.
Top moment. What was your top moment of Bloody Axe Wound?
probably the kill. I know you brought it up before when Mackenzie falls face first into the trophy. That kill I thought was very fun. And I also liked at the, kind of a spoiler, but you guys know we do spoilers in these. So at the end when Abbie realizes that she thought I guess it was Bladecut. I guess she thought it was her dad who came back up from the ground after he died again or whatever, but it was actually Sam coming back. So it's like, is Sam the new Bladecut now? Like, is she going to be in the films and stuff?
I'm assuming maybe his spirit passed
or that,
to her.
Yeah.
And she kind of overtook that.
Because this guy also was kind of like a zombie, too. We didn't really mention that.
Yeah.
He would get buried and come back to life for these movies.
And that's how he's getting older, is
Yes.
it's harder for him to come out of the grave. You know, he's never had to have anybody pull him out of the
Yes.
grave. You know, my top moment was I when Junior failed his attack and, you know, fell face first onto the trophy. I thought that was a really fun way to kind of push the story. But yeah, the kill alone was really good, and it was just really funny dialogue of, oh, damn, I really wanted her. Can we get her dirty again? Like, I really wanted to. And it was almost like he was speaking to like a cast and crew filming, which obviously aren't there.
And then he was like, "Oh, the guy's in the shower. You're in luck. You will get your shower kill." And he's like, "Man, I don't want to see all that."
Yeah, I don't want to see the guy's wiener. So, what would you change about Bloody Axe Wound?
Probably just the storytelling a little bit and maybe adding a little bit onto it as well.
Okay. I did the same thing with the storyline. I would say, I said adjust the story to make it a little bit more believable and still keeping the coming of age slasher, you know, next of kin style story. Because that was really cool. It's something original. But I would have made them live like in the outskirts of town. So there was no question of how do they not know these people. Maybe at that desolate campground, that's their house.
Yeah.
So that way when you go back there, it makes more sense, full circle. I would kind of omit the movie aspect of it and supplement it just with like mysterious news stories.
Okay.
Because newspapers can mysteriously drop on the ground. You know, they get delivered every day. So that could be the way the town knows about this or something like that. I would just... The movie rental store aspect was fun, but it left too many question marks of who's filming, who's distributing, who's buying these. The people that buy them or rent them, how do they not know it's real? Yeah. Especially if they are actually killing these people. I would have just kind of buttoned that aspect up a little bit. And you could still have that coming-of-age story and, you know, the family business or something along those lines. Because I think you could keep all the good that was in this while shaving some of the bad. So, who is this for?
This movie, I think, is for anyone who likes gory, over-the-top slashers with a hint of comedy and the essence of a coming-of-age film.
Yeah, if you like coming-of-age stories, I think the only movie of recent times that is similar, maybe Lisa Frankenstein.
That's a good one,
kind of like similar vibes, I guess.
High school, falling in love, making friends.
Yeah, it's more of that's more of like a rom-com love interest. This is more coming of age, but it's similar vibes with that horror overlay. So yeah, coming of age fans and slasher fans, this will be for you. So our fear and beer rating: fear, obviously a scale of 1 through 5 of how scary this movie was, and a beer rating 1 through 5 of how much you enjoyed this movie. So what was your fear rating for Bloody Axe Wound?
My fear rating for this was I've been torn, but I think I'm going to go with a 1.5.
Okay. I'm gonna go with a 2.5.
Okay.
I kind of fudge, like, I adjust the scare for what we're kind of watching. This really isn't a scary movie, but it's gory.
I'll give this a 2 then, because that's what I was on the fence about.
Yeah, so I kind of adjust the meaning of scary depending on what we're watching. You know, if you're watching a full-on, very scary movie, obviously it's the scares that we're looking for. But if it's more of just like a funny body horror, gory kind of thing, similar to Mosquito last week, where I kind of gave it more of a score based off of the effects and the body horror versus like how actually scary it was, because it really wasn't scary. But 2.5 for all the blood and gore, I think is fair, right in the middle. So your beer rating, how much did you enjoy Bloody Axe Wound?
I matched its Shudder Skull rating. I gave this a 3.
Okay. I will give this a 3.5.
Okay.
I love slashers. I love coming of age stories. The comedy in it was great. This is something I will definitely revisit. That's for sure.
I knew you would like this one when I started watching it the other day.
I think upon second watch, I will enjoy it more.
I think so too.
Knowing what I'm getting into and being able to just not care about the parts that I was trying to overthink when I did my first watch of this. When I was trying to like analyze it a little bit, I'm like, why is it? Where's this go? Just kind of shut your brain off a little bit and just enjoy it. It is a fun watch.
Yes,
So
and quick watch.
it is, yeah, and it's a very quick watch. So that's what we got for Bloody Axe Wound. That is that, and we will see you next time.